Okay, so we're going to be in Chapter 3, Section 1 for this video. We're going to discuss the early history of the American government and analyze the Constitutional Convention and what it did. By early 1787, it was obvious that the national government needed to be strengthened. It was very weak up until that point. The states were all asked to send delegates to Philadelphia for a convention. Rhode Island chose not to take part because they didn't believe in a stronger central government. They wanted to be more localized, more state-led. But the Articles of Confederation was just too weak. They couldn't continue going with that. The convention began on May 25th, 1787 at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. Most of the 55 men that were there were lawyers, merchants, physicians, generals, and planters with influence. Now, planters with influence are somebody like George Washington. His family was part of the first families of Virginia, the FFV, and they were very influential planters. Not just any normal planter would be invited to come, but the ones that had influence were. They were rich, powerful, had large areas of land. Benjamin Franklin was the oldest delegate at 81 years old. Two delegates, George Washington and James Madison, would go on to become president. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams was in Europe at the time as representatives of the U.S. government. So they weren't in the United States at the time. They would also go on to become presidents, but they were being representatives of the U.S. government in Europe during this time. Patrick Henry was not there, but even though he was elected as a delegate, he was against it. So he was elected as a delegate, but he refused to go there, and so he didn't take part in it. They all decided that George Washington should be over the convention. He was over the Continental Army. They felt like he did a great job. During this time, people loved George Washington. It's the reason why he would be just the hands-down pick to become the first president. He called on speakers and made sure it ran in an orderly fashion. He just basically would say, okay, now so-and-so, you get to talk. And he would make sure it was orderly. They all realized the importance of hurrying to develop a strong central government. And one of Washington's first orders was to create a committee for setting rules for conducting the convention. They decided that meetings could not happen unless delegates from at least 7 states were there. They wanted to make sure there was at least a minimum. They didn't want 1 or 2 delegates or 1 or 2 states coming and making all the decisions. Quorum is a term that means the minimum amount that has to be present for business to take place. So in quorum, it is the minimum amount. Like if you got 10 people in the group, 6 has got to be there for you to make a decision, because you don't want 1 or 2 people to meet up when nobody else can and make all the decisions. You want to make sure that the majority is there. They also agreed to keep the discussions from the meeting a secret. They could speak freely without worrying about how the public will react. I mean, look today. Look at Congress. When Congress does anything, the news reports it immediately, and they automatically start getting backlash. With this, they can go, they can talk without worrying about thinking what else is going on outside. No formal documents came out of the event due to its secrecy. The only information we have came from a notebook by James Madison. He kind of kept notes of what was going on and wrote in a personal notebook. And then after he dies, this is found, and this is where the only information that comes from this notebook. They were originally given the job of revising the Articles of Confederation, but they realized there was more work that was needed. So they basically sat down and said, look, we're just going to have to throw this whole thing out and start from scratch, because it's got a lot more issues than we thought. They decided a new constitution needed to be written, and so this would become the Constitutional Convention, the meeting in Philadelphia. They were originally going to redo the Articles of Confederation, but they realized it just needed to be replaced. So that brings us to the end of section 1. It wasn't a very long section, but it kind of gives you the idea of what we're leading up to with the development of the U.S. Constitution. So we will continue this in section 2.